I think we'll go ahead and get started here. I'll bring up the agenda. All right. And share. Why do I not see that? Well, we don't need to look at the agenda. We'll just skip that part. But so anyway, the thing that we wanted to tackle first was just a welcome to all attending today. I think we have a lot of folks on the call, so that's great to see. I think Jennifer probably has some general updates that she would like to share, but one of the things that I did want to mention before we get moving forward, in our last September session, we talked about the PFD panel for iFish, and I have been working on outlining that. And so my hope is that this week I can reach out to folks who I think have voiced interest in being part of the panel session at iFish and kind of coordinating the formatting of that. It's actually 2 sessions for the iFish conference. So hope to be in touch in the next week or 2, but that's the plan. So let's see. Do we have Jennifer?
I think that this was the meeting that Jennifer's not able to attend, but if she's
Okay.
on here, she can speak up, but I don't know that she is able to join today.
Yeah, I think she did mention that she wasn't going to be able to join us, but sometimes that changes. So always good to
Yeah.
check.
Okay. Yeah.
But so anyway, I think that probably the thing that Jennifer would have discussed if she could join us today would be just reminding people about iFish that we need folks to, if they're planning on attending, to pre-register on either the iFish website or the FAO website. It's a requirement for attending the conference. Also, if you are intending to go, you'll need your passport to get into the building. And we are hoping to post the conference proceedings by the end of the week. So for anyone who's wondering when they're presenting, what sessions they'll be part of, what days they're going to be on the lineup, that should be posted in the next week. And I think some folks have been waiting to book their tickets for iFish until they knew when they were presenting. So hopefully by the end of this week, you'll be able to get that information on the iFish site. I think that's probably all that we have for general updates. I don't know if anyone has questions about the PFD panel at iFish or iFish, but if so, just take yourself off mute and throw them out there. Okay. All right. So then I think the next thing on our agenda is a presentation by Kerri-Ann, Ennis, Rob Brown, and Kim Cullen on improving crew overboard recovery. I think that's a really important topic and one that we were actually just talking about last week, especially in regards to single operator vessels. I think there's some concerns about what happens for those folks who are going out and fishing alone. So I don't know if our presenters today will have any answers for that scenario, but we look forward to hearing what you have to share with us. So if you guys want to go ahead and share your screen, I will put myself on mute and let you, let you share your presentation.
Okay, Kim, do you want me to share my screen? Does that work?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Julie, I hope I don't disappoint you, but we're not doing man overboard recovery. We're doing PFDs and PLDs, personal locator beacons and personal flotation devices. So I don't think that was, I think there must have been a mix up there. But I think
well, yeah, what I'm sure that sounds fine. It's just, I think what we had on the agenda. So I'm just working for that,
no.
but we might have had some changes. So
Okay. So I'll go ahead and see if I can share my screen. So while I'm doing this, thanks for the opportunity too. It's a great opportunity. It's perfect timing for us to, I don't know if I can talk and try and figure out how to share my screen at the same time. I'll get into it now. Do you see that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect.
I don't see everybody now, so you can speak up if you need to, all that stuff. But thanks again for the opportunity for us to speak about our research that we're doing here on the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland and Labrador on the use of PFDs and PLBs, so personal flotation devices and personal locator beacons, with both recreational boaters and fish harvesters. It's like I was saying, it was perfect timing because we're just about ready to start to administer our survey. So right now, this is great for us that if there's any feedback that you can give us at the end of this presentation, everything will be received. I guess we would welcome any feedback. So, I guess start off with a background of why we're doing this research. And I'm not sure that I'm sharing the correct presentation now that I see it, but we'll go with it. So why we're doing this research? These three vessels, fishing vessels, have all been involved in tragic fishing accidents in the last 10 years in Newfoundland and Labrador. And from the accident investigation reports, to no one's surprise, a reoccurring theme is that there's no personal flotation devices, no flotation at all used. But we know that that's a reoccurring theme. But something else that we want to highlight is that the lack of emergency distress signals sent at the time of an incident happening. The majority of boating accidents that happen around here, we don't know that they happened until they're reported overdue, which oftentimes is too late. And in the case of these three fishing vessels, unfortunately, that was the case. And on the recreational side of things, so I said we're looking at recreational boating and fish harvesters. On the recreational side of things, we all are very familiar with this statistic that, the majority of boating-related drownings, people do not have their personal flotation devices on. However, there's a lack of, I guess, available data on whether emergency distress signals were sent during these incidents. But we do know from the media and other sources that oftentimes these tragic accidents, boating-related accidents, even in recreational boating, there's no emergency distress signal sent at the time of the accident. So no one knows that help is needed, and no one knows until they're reported overdue, which oftentimes, again, is too late. So to better help explain, I guess, the effectiveness of or how a PFD and a PLB can be effective in a boating-related accident, I love to use Dr. Gordon Giesbrecht's 1-10-1 principle. I know that there's a lot of people in this working group who are very familiar with this and are, I guess, supporters of this, if you would, principle. But if we look at it, when we fall into the water, the process we go through, the physiological process response that we go through, the first one is your 1 minute to catch your breath. And then you have about 10 minutes where you still have, the ability to swim or get yourself out of the water. But after that, then we start to lose our muscle function and strength. And then we have about an hour before we become unconscious due to hypothermia or whatever. And this helps explain the importance of a PFD. When we need to keep our head above water to catch our breath, that's where you need your PFD. If some of us don't have a PFD on, but we can swim and we're lucky enough to get through that first minute, we still only have 10 minutes after that. So after that 10 minutes, you still, you increase your chance of survival with that PFD. And then after that, if we don't have any additional thermal protection, we really do need to shorten the exposure time or increase, increase the SAR response, or the decrease the SAR response, I guess. So that's where notifying someone that you need help right away is very important, which that's where your personal locator beacon comes into the picture. So I know we all know what personal flotation devices are. That's why we're all here. But just for those who, I guess, didn't see Dr. Rob Brown's presentation a couple of years ago in this group, and for those who need a little refresher, I just wanted to talk about what a PLB is, or a personal locator beacon is, just give you I guess a little picture of it before we get into the research. But a personal locator beacon is an emergency distress radio transmitter. It initiates the SAR response, so the signal is, it lets someone know that you need help, and it also provides a location for the incident. So where the incident is, taking the guesswork out of it for search and rescue. So we say taking the search out of search and rescue. And it assists in saving lives. So it's a handheld device that can fit in your pocket or on your PFD. It's used at sea, on land, and in air. You don't require a subscription, which some people aren't aware of this, because there are other emergency communication devices on the market where you do require a subscription, but a true PLB, you don't require a subscription. You buy it, you register it, which is something that's very important too, for the system to work as efficiently as possible. You become familiar with it because you don't want a piece of equipment you don't know how to use, especially when you're faced with, in an emergency. You don't want to not be familiar with it. You wear it, you don't store it in a locker. Same thing we preach with regards to our flotation devices. And then you maintain it. So very similar to your PFDs when it comes to what you need to do to actually use these devices. So how does it actually work? So this is, you end up with persons in the water, they activate the PLB. The signal is detected by the satellites. Emergency notification is sent to the rescue center, and then SARS, the search and rescue, are engaged or activated, and then the person is rescued. So this is actually probably, some people may enjoy this picture better. So you see that I don't know if you can see my mouse, you may not, but you can follow along, I guess, that the PLB is activated, it's sent to the satellite. So the red dots, and then it's sent to JRCC, or the rescue center. And in this picture here, there's an extra path, a signal path, where there's actually a signal sent back to the PLB, where a light comes on to let the person in the water know that, oh, someone on land has received my signal, they know I'm in trouble. So it's actually, not every model have the return link service, but there are a few models on the market where they have this return link service, where the light will come on to let the person in the water, to give them, I guess, that little bit of extra hope that, okay, now someone is coming to get me. But that's, it's as simple as that. And I guess just to help you understand too how this system is very effective is the COSPAS SARSAT system. So this, the pictures here show the different levels of satellites. So you have your LEO, MEO, and GEO, and they're constantly orbiting the Earth, and with more and more MEO satellites, and this shows you the coverage. So with more and more MEO satellites being put into orbit, the coverage is getting better and better and better. So I guess the effectiveness of the system is improving with every satellite that gets put up in the orbit. But the COSPAS SARSAT system has assisted in saving 57,000 people in over 17,600 SAR events since September of 1982. But this doesn't just include PLBs, it includes EPIRBs and SARTs and other emergency distress signaling devices that operate on 406. But that's getting into extra details that Dr. Brown can speak to. But this just shows how the system works. So a couple of associations and organizations in our province in Newfoundland and Labrador have recognized the benefits of PLBs to fish harvesters and to boaters, and as well as to increasing the efficiency of SAR response, in an emergency. And they've come up with a couple of PLB distribution programs. So the Fish Harvester Safety Association, the Union, the Resource Center, and the Certification Board in Newfoundland and Labrador have offered a cost share program for PLBs for their members, for fish harvesters, where they, I think they're offering PLBs at 40% cost. And the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary so Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary are volunteers. Majority of them are fish harvesters who assist. They do training and they assist the Coast Guard in any search and rescue events. And they've distributed over 600, I think, 500 or 600 to their members recently as well. So we have our organizations who are doing a great job of trying to get this piece of safety equipment out to the members. But there are still people who don't avail of these programs or still don't use this equipment. So if we know that PFDs and PLBs are our last line of defense in the event of a boating accident, then why are people still choosing to not use PFDs and PLBs? And how do we get more people to use PFDs and PLBs? So these are the questions that are kind of driving our research, or so our research, we are doing a couple of systematic reviews, surveys. We've done some observational data we collected some observational data on PFD use by recreational boaters this summer. And we want to develop, we want to look at some of the, things that have been effective with the PLB distribution program. So that intervention, but we also want to figure out, is there another intervention we can come up with, behavior change intervention we can come up with to improve PFDs and PLBs. So I mentioned there's two research projects, very similar. One, the fish harvesters one, we're doing a systematic review, and the intervention is already, in place. So we're doing the survey, and in the survey, we're looking at attitudes and behaviors, looking at factors associated with PFD and PLB use, and then we're also trying to capture a little bit of the effectiveness of the PLB cost share program. And then recreational side of things, we're doing the systematic review survey, very similar, but there hasn't been a specific intervention targeted at recreational voters yet. We've done some observational data or collected some observational data for PFD use, and we want to develop an intervention from the data, from the information we get from our survey. We want to use that to develop an intervention to target the barriers and whatnot that are identified from the survey. So the survey is what I'm going to, I guess, expand on a little bit more, because that's what we're almost ready to roll out with, and I would love any feedback from this group here, because you have lots to share. So we're doing an online survey using Qualtrics software. For the fish harvesters, we're actually doing the population we're targeting is fish harvesters that are 15 plus years of age, and recreational boaters 18 plus years of age. The reason there's a bit of an age difference there, the fish harvesters can register as a professional fish harvester with our certification board at 15 years, and we don't want to exclude them from the fish harvesting population. We want to capture the entire population there. Recruitment will be carried out through community organizations, email listserv. So we've partnered up with some industry partners, and we've reached out to community groups, recreational boating community groups that are on board to help us distribute the word of the survey. And the survey will be open for 4 weeks with a reminder sent out at the 2-week mark. So the survey development, the questionnaire development has been an iterative process. We've consulted the literature and industry partners, in addition to other stakeholders such as Coast Guard. We reached out to Coast Guard and asked them if there was anything that they would find useful, any questions they had around the use of PFDs and PLBs, and so it was important to reach out to such stakeholders. We've done a pilot study with industry partners and the target population. So fish harvesters themselves and our industry partners I mentioned, which is the Safety Association and the Certification Board. Other things that we had to consider in the survey development. So we're not looking at a specific type of fish harvester, if you would, or a specific, they're not fishing a specific species, or not on just long liners. So we've trying to capture the entire fish harvesting population and entire recreational boaters population. So we've had to, do a lot of display and skip logic in our questionnaire to account for people with multiple boats and stuff like that. So when people have identified they have multiple boats or they go fishing on multiple types of vessels, we want them to give us their feedback on their primary vessel, but then we ask them afterwards a little bit about their secondary vessel, which I'll get into on another slide, I think, not too far away. We wanted to, since we're doing these two surveys at the same time, we wanted to ensure that there's comparable data captured from both surveys. We had to take into consideration ethics for human collection of human data. And we also, something that's new with our university is we wanted to consult the Indigenous community. So we do ask a question in our surveys about Indigenous status. And if we're going to ask that and collect that type of information, it's important that we do have a committee in our university. It's for research, ethical research in Indigenous populations. So, so that was another step that we had to take. So I know this slide looks really wordy, but this is probably, hopefully, one of the slides that will, I guess, lead to some discussion afterwards. But here's some of the, I guess, questions or types of data that we were asking and collecting in our surveys so far. So, you know, demographic, your typical demographic questions, including experience, like so years and related work. So on the recreational side of things, we want to know, you know, if they're responding to the recreational survey, are they also fish harvesters, or do they have, you know, are they a seafarer by trade? Just understand some of that, and as well as, like, you know, are you do you come from a fishing family on the fish harvester survey? And then vessel characteristics, you know, your typical vessel characteristics again, the types of species you fish, the type of fishing you're doing, the distance from shore, you know, how long are you going to be on the water? Is it a multi-day trip? Do you usually only go out for a couple hours? Do you go out for multiple days? And then also the number of fish harvesters on your boat. Or the number of people on your recreational boat. So, you know, I didn't put everything in here, even though it kind of looks like I did because there's so many words on the screen. But, and then we also want to we also hoping to collect a little bit around behaviors and attitudes. So, you know, what type of flotation is available on your boat? What do you use? Or emergency communication devices? How often do you use these devices? We're going to capture the stage of behavior change, so their willingness to use these devices or equipment, and how it is used. So we don't just want to know, oh, are you using it or do you own it? We also want to understand, are they maintaining it properly? Do they have they registered the PLB? I mentioned earlier that, you know, registering it is an important part in making sure that it will serve you as efficiently as possible when you do activate it. So we want to capture some of these things. And then as well as secondary vessels. So I did mention that we are asking people to identify the different vessels that they may fish from or go boating on. And from there, you know, we've asked them to give responses based on their primary vessel, but we do want to know, does their behavior change when they are in a different environment or on a different type of vessel? Attitudes, again, barriers. So attitudes around, you know, the different barriers. So, you know, do they believe that PFDs are effective or PLBs are effective? Do they believe they're important? You know, are they comfortable? Are these different barriers? Do they agree or disagree with whether these are different barriers to use of these equipments? Perceptions of risk. So we want to look at risk behavior, risk perception, lived experiences. So do lived experiences such as, you know, knowing someone who's been in an incident or being in a close call incident yourself have any impact on your behavior around the use of these equipments? And intervention characteristics. So we're going to capture again for the PLB campaigns, when and where and when did you purchase and how did you learn about the campaigns? We want to understand, like, where the most effective methods or modes of delivery were. So some of our survey outputs, we want I guess from the survey, we have the opportunity to compare recreational boaters and fish harvesters. We also can look at, we can look at what the current usage rates are and the willingness is to use PFDs and PLBs, and we can compare that across recreational boaters and fish harvesters as well. Do PFD and PLB use vary depending on demographic group or vessel type, size, activity, location? And then I guess we can try and answer why, or maybe we can answer why down the road. Do individuals change their PFD and PLB use behavior from primary vessel to secondary vessel, which may be a more interesting question to answer. If I can just give an example, and I've given this example before, but my dad owns a 26-foot pleasure craft. He's a retired captain with the Coast Guard, and he doesn't wear his PFD on the 26-foot cabin boat, but he will wear it if he goes up on the bow, or he will wear it if he goes in the Zodiac to go to shore, or he will wear it in a canoe. So there's some kind of risk assessment that he does to determine that, when he needs to wear it, when he doesn't. So that kind of leads us to, perceptions of risk or risk behavior. And are they indicators of the willingness to use PFDs and PLBs? And then, we want to capture what are some of the behaviors. And these are just some things that hopefully may lead to discussion. So to summarize, PFDs and PLBs are your best friend in a boating-related water immersion incident. PLBs can take or may take the search at a search and rescue. The incident reports indicate that there's a lack of PFD use and also PLB use, which is something, we want to really look at. Surveys will help us better understand the factors associated with PFD and PLB use. And from our findings, we'll develop an intervention to increase the use of PFDs and PLBs by recreational boaters and fish harvesters in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I guess the final thing is acknowledgement. So I acknowledge the funders of the two projects, which are Transport Canada Boating Safety Contribution Program and the Canadian Centre for Fisheries Innovation, as well as Workplace NL. And also our industry partners, which are the Newfoundland Labrador Fish Harvesting Safety Association, Professional Fish Harvesters Certification Board, Fish Food and Allied Workers Union, and the Fish Harvesters Resource Center. And that is all.
All right. Thanks, Kerri-Ann.
Yeah. I'll unshare, but if I need to reshare a slide because someone wants to see it again, not a problem. I'd just like to see you guys.
Yeah, it is easier and also easier to identify anyone with questions. But I did notice that there was a question from John Connaughton in the chat. I'll read it to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No problem. Interesting presentation, Kerri-Ann. Are Hello SAR beacons in use in Newfoundland? The return link service beacon is a better option as described that sends messages back to the casualty that the distress alert was received and location known.
Oh, perhaps Rob is chiming in there. I'm going to let Rob take that one.
Yeah, I don't actually know if they're in use here in the province, but if they're like the other fast find devices which operate on the COSPAS SARSAT system, so they certainly should be operational, because that's one of the benefits of a PLB over some of the other types of transmission devices, is that you can use them worldwide without subscriptions. So I'm sure they are available here. I haven't had my hands on any of the return link devices yet, but I agree that is a really good option to have in a PLB, to give somebody the indication that the message has been received and we're working on it.
Yeah, and I think the model that I had in the little diagram was the Rescue Me or Rescue Link, Rescue Me, I think. So that one also offers the return link service. But, yeah.
Anne, I think you had a question.
Yes, thanks. Really interesting project, Kerri-Ann. Thanks. Let's see. My question is really more about formatting the Qualtrics, and so there are a lot of questions here, and maybe you've got a lot of options within Qualtrics. But one of the things I like to use, if it doesn't lose you the information, is a matrix. And I think that it's possible that you can get some, by setting up some matrices, you can have a shorter amount of time on the Qualtrics survey itself. So, you know, I'm sure you've got people around you who can help you decide which questions would work under a matrix rather than under, you know, yes, maybe, no, or some of those other options that Qualtrics offers you.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that feedback. We do have a fair number of matrix style questions in our survey. And Qualtrics actually gave me some feedback and basically said, you have too many matrix questions in your survey, and they didn't like it, but I didn't see a better option because it would just break it down into, like you're kind of indicating, too many questions, and that would be way too intimidating. The matrix makes it look like one question, but really you're kind of capturing, like, you know, 4 or 5 questions. So yeah.
Yeah, but
sure.
their algorithm is set to ask you to use more questions. So I wouldn't be intimidated by that necessarily.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that feedback. That's excellent.
I think Fleming also had a question.
Yeah, it was more some information on the last PLB from Rescue Meter PLB 3 that you showed. It also have another benefit. If you install it in a inflatable life jacket, you can install it so it would automatically turn on when the vest is blown up, is inflated. Yeah,
I didn't know that one.
that's one of the few PLBs who have that feature.
Oh,
Thank you, Fleming.
yeah.
I think that Keith also has a question.
Yes, I do. Great presentation, and it's really great work. Anyway, I'm Keith Lonis. I'm with Clearwater Seafoods in Nova Scotia, so not too far away from Memorial as a crow flies. So I guess kind of one of my questions is, we use Wamba units across our fleet, and we've kind of taken the mindset that we prefer to have the AIS notification. You know, if we lose, if somebody, God forbid, somebody goes overboard from one of our vessels, so that anybody in the near immediate, you know, right in the general area can get to these people much faster, much quicker in our mind. But have you done any research on, you know, whether using satellite or AIS? And also the other big burning question is, which units perform the best? And especially when you get into the smaller boat categories, especially, you know, when we talked, it's been kind of a topic of discussion around the inshore lobster fleets and it's also been some of our challenge that we do get false activations. You know, our guys are on top of it if it does happen, because, you know, a guy takes the sea in the face, so to speak. But have you done a bunch of work there? And I'm wondering if, and I guess I'll finish off with my last question is, so, you know, how does this reflect on people willing to use them? And I think that's one of our biggest challenges is how effective are they, and how it's going to work, you know, in their specific industry. And I think the majority of people would maybe be on the fence on whether it should be satellite or EPIRB based or should be AIS based. So I'd like to hear your views on that and the work you've done on that.
So we kind of ask ourselves the same questions sometimes, but if I start with your first question, I think it was one of your first questions about the performance. Rob and some of his master's students have done some work on performance in different sea states, so he can speak to that, and probably we can carry on the conversation from there. But I had a second thought. There were so many questions in that one spiel. I'll let Rob speak to the performance, and then I don't think we're my second thought was, I don't think we're in a position to recommend which one is best, but yeah, I'll let Rob speak to the performance testing that he did.
Sure. We did some testing with PLBs, and I think that's what I presented on in this forum a while back, looking at just the local detection range to see if the sea state, because of course these are radio transmission devices which don't transmit well through water, for example, and signals can be blocked. We noticed during not, I'll say, dedicated research, it seemed to be that in rougher sea states, you had to be much closer to people in the water before you detected them. In fact, when we did controlled as possible research at sea, we didn't see a significant shortening of the distance. And in some cases, we were actually able to get the signal, or the signal was received over a longer distance in some of the rougher conditions, because presumably the person wearing the beacon and the vessel that's detecting were both on the crest of waves. So sometimes when you're in the bottom of a wave, you might not get the signal, but if you're near the top of the wave, you might actually get that signal over a longer distance. So that was encouraging to see that there wasn't a significant shortening of the detection range. That testing did not use the satellite system for various reasons, but that's something that we're interested in pursuing. But to provide some thoughts on whether the satellite system slows down the detection of the signal, I would say that in most cases, particularly nowadays with the MEOSAR satellite constellations having greater coverage, that the delay from pressing the button until somebody at the Rescue Coordination Center has received the information and is investigating is somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 minutes, is what we've been told by the RCCs. But we're going to investigate that a little bit further. And with regards to AIS, there are obviously some benefits, particularly if you have a lot of vessels sailing in a given area that have chart plotters that are able to show up the distress beacon. But if there's nobody nearby, then you may be at a disadvantage if you have only AIS, because 406 megahertz, which transmits to the satellite constellation, works anywhere in the world, and very reliably as well. So, but that would be my thoughts on that. Having AIS, in my view, is better than having nothing. But if I was going out on a boat, I would have a 406 121.5 beacon for my own peace of mind. The other interesting thing that we did with a student who finished around this time last year was we had also heard from some different training organizations. So we provide safety training for fish harvesters at our university, as well as general seafaring population, was that in cold exposure situations, sometimes people found it difficult to actually press the button on the PLBs. And so we wanted to investigate that a little bit further. And in fact, I think, was it Frankie Horn maybe, who said that some of the fish harvesters that he had trained were using the tip of the antenna to press the button because their fingers were so large. So what we did was we had a population of people, not necessarily fish harvesters, come in and expose their hands to cold water for a period of a couple of minutes. Like might be the case if you have to abandon a vessel and let's say you're wearing an immersion suit, but your hands are exposed for those first couple of minutes until you get your gloves on. After a 2-minute exposure, we gave people the PLBs to try and press the buttons, and we also had them work with a specially designed test apparatus to see what size and shape and texture of buttons gave the highest likelihood of successful activation. And what we found was that cold versus warm, there was no significant, and I mean that in the statistical sense, there was no significant difference in performance between the two, which again was very encouraging. But what we did see with actual PLBs is that even though everybody was given basic training, and these are simple devices, they only typically have 2 buttons. But after a short training session, when people couldn't see the devices, so they put their hands through a cutout in a cardboard display, and we put the PLB in their hands and said, okay, we just gave you training on this. Turn the device on and lay it down when you're confident that it's been turned on. And I should stress, this is a pilot study, it needs more work, but we found that about 25 to 30% of people were able to actually successfully activate the beacon, although their confidence in having done so was much higher. So that's something that we want to do some more investigation on, because this is a training, I think this is a, potentially a training issue or a learning issue. They're simple devices, but if you don't pay attention to them, you might not be able to operate them. I've gone on way too long, so I'll pass it back over to Kerri-Ann.
I think we have a few more questions, folks. Lily, I think you had your hand up next.
I did. I find this really interesting. And Robert, your point about cold hands and being able to hit the button, time is of the essence. And that was certainly driven home to me. The Canadian Safe Boating Council did their annual symposium in September in St. John's. And on the final day, we got a tour of the Canadian Coast Guard Maritime Rescue Subcenter right there in St. John's. It's this spectacular building, and they presented to us, how this works. I'm actually looking at a slide, a picture I took during the presentation, sort of saying this is the basics, the SAR system. You get the emergency beacons, so you've got the EPIRBs, the ELTs, the spots. You've got the different kinds, but you also have VHF radios. You've got all radio communication. You've got direct phone calls, cell phones. And it was so interesting that as soon as that distress signal comes in to that substation, then they showed us a program that they pull up, and they can enter all of the information that they have about the situation. What kind of clothing are they wearing? Are they in a survival suit? What is the body type of the person, if they know it? The weather, and then they can calculate how much time they have to rescue a live person. And then we got to tour the 2 guys that are always on duty. There's 2 operators waiting for any kind of distress call. So your studies are like, I met 2 of those guys that are on duty, and they always have 2 because if there's more than one distress call coming in at the same time, but the way they handle it is distress call comes in, one guy gets the information, the other guy is already alerting and seeing what rescue assets they have in the area. And it's just astounding. So that the results of the successful rescues, it is such a teamwork, and time is of the essence. And you're right, if you can cut down the time, if your ability to push the button, Robert, as you're saying, your ability to engage that first response is just amazing. It's an incredible network of people helping people. So I just wanted to say that. I've got some photographs I can share in the chat if you want to see that. Those 2 guys waiting for the distress call. But great location, and they gave us a great tour. So I don't really have a question. I just am very excited about this presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Lily. Leanne from AMC also has a question.
Oh yeah, just a comment. I think it sounds like a great study. I'm excited to see how it unfolds. And one unique thing about this study is that it's able to compare rec boating and commercial, which in the US, because of our funding, we don't really get that comparison easily. And then, but my comment was about the PLB versus AIS. I just wanted to point out to the group, since it's relatively new, is there is a ACR device that is a PLB/AIS. So I'm sure most of you know that, but and for any of you guys who don't know it, it just came out relatively recently. So, and it does have that function that allows it to automatically activate when the PFD inflates. So that's all I had.
I think the ACR is what you mentioned that time. The ACR also has a return link service. That one of the newer models has the return link service as well. So yeah, I mean, these devices are constantly being improved, like all technology, and it's encouraging to see for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Are there any other questions for our presenters? I don't see any. So I will just thank Rob and Kerri-Ann for sharing their research and the work and knowledge with us today. I think it's very helpful. Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot. One thing that I forgot to ask at the beginning of the presentation or the call is if everyone is okay with recording the session and posting this on iFish as we typically. Yeah, okay. If anybody does have a problem, just send us a quick email and let us know. But generally what we do is we post these on the iFish website so others who couldn't join the call can tune in later at their convenience. So just wanted to put that out there. So Kim, I don't know, are you okay with doing the wrap up or?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Julie, for taking over and doing welcomes and letting people know about the recordings. And thank you, Kerri-Ann and Rob. That presentation was awesome. Great conversations happening with the group. So I really do appreciate you bringing that to this group. And I also appreciate everyone being flexible on the timing. I know this call was scheduled for December 6th, and I appreciate you all being here today. On that note, putting us back on our normal timeline for this quarterly call, that would put us around March 6th. So if that works for everyone, I'll go ahead and schedule that call. I know we've talked a little bit about Frankie Horn today. I don't think he's actually on the call, but he did recommend the international RNLI team to do a presentation for that next call. But I wanted to remind everyone that you're more than welcome to send me some topics or send me some potential presenters to keep this call going. The conversations that we're having are really important and really great, and I love the engagement and the presentations that we have here. But if you have any recommendations, feel free to email them to me directly, and I will update this meeting invite to attach this recording after we get it posted on the iFish website, and everyone should have my contact information as well. But thank you guys so much. If anyone, I see there's some things in the chat, so I haven't taken a look at those, but yeah, just Kerri-Ann, great job.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to say none of this goes to me. This is all Kerri-Ann. This is all, she did all the heavy lifting here.
Yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah.
And Kim, if I might just ask a quick question before everybody hops off. As Kim mentioned, Frankie has volunteered to provide updates in March, but one thing that I think would be helpful for our team is if anyone knows a researcher or safety specialist who is working in the area of solo commercial fisheries operators, people who are fishing alone on boats. If I think, like I said at our last advisory board meeting, this topic came up and there's a question about what is best practice if you're out there fishing alone. What is there a particular life jacket that you should be using? Is there a particular is a PLB your only option? Reboarding doesn't seem probably manageable, but if anyone could present on that, I think that would be really helpful.
Hey, Julie, this is
Yeah.
Len Nelson with Kent.
Yes, Len.
Obviously we talked to Biva and Ray last week, and they're single-handed guys or people fishing. And I really am intrigued by this topic because when you're solo, you have to have a whole different strategy than if you have a crew. And I think this is worthy of much deeper discussion. And anything we can do from, a gear or advisance standpoint, we're happy to do.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Len, because I think it is a source of concern, and I don't know that we have a good process that we can share. And Rob, I don't know if you were raising your hand, but I do think it's something we need to deal with. And I think one of the reasons I'm particularly concerned is in the Northeast, our fleet is likely going to be moving more towards single operator vessels, and they're likely going to be going out farther. And so this is a source of concern for us because it's not a good scenario, and I think it will also only get worse. Unless we have some.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, unless we have some, tested, tried and true methods for these folks.
Listening to those fishers, listening to Biva and Ray, and hearing why they're solo, and realizing that is growing really quickly. We've got to address that, and we've got to help those people with the right equipment and gear. And it is different than if you have a crew. And so I'm not quite sure how we do that, but we need some more information from folks like them.
Right. And Leanne, I don't know, is this something that is on AMC's radar? Have you guys thought about this? I don't know if you can hear me, Leanne, but anyway, so if anybody has any ideas for presenters or know of research that is going on in this domain, if you could please let us know. We'd be happy to reach out to them to see if they could present to the group. I suspect if we're concerned about this, others may be as well. Oh, Fleming? Yeah.
We in Denmark, we have an ongoing campaign on safety on one-man operated vessels, but it's not a study in that sense. It's just our normal advising and counseling on safety on one-man operated vessels, which we have a lot of in Denmark. And from 2016 until now, we have 6 fatal accidents on, well, 7 fatal accidents on fishing vessels, because that means commercial fishing vessels, and 6 of those has been with one-man operated vessels. So we have an ongoing campaign on what safety equipment we recommend them to use. That's a ladder so they can get on board again. That's a emergency stop so they can stop the vessel. That's a flotation device. That's a PLB. So on. And as we are speaking, the Danish Maritime Authority is working on making it mandatory for one-man operated vessels to acquire a PLB and use it.
So would you be willing to present at an upcoming on an upcoming PFD call on your training approach?
Yeah, I can do that. But it's the practical advisory from we are didn't reach to present myself when we started because I tried to put up the hand, but you didn't see it. But
oh, sorry.
I'm the manager of the Danish Fishermen Occupational Health Service, and we assist the fishermen in all issues regarding occupational health and safety. And we are one of a kind. I haven't seen any other organizations like ours in anywhere in the world. So, but we can do that, and we also made a guide recently on when we are visiting the vessels, and we assist the fishermen on board their vessels. We help them with everything regarding safety and occupational health. So yes, I can do that. if
Yay.
that could be an issue. Then you can see how we do it in Denmark anyway. Yeah.
That would be wonderful. I am so excited. So thank you for letting me volunteer you. But
Then you might help me with an issue. We try to pre-register on IFIS 6 because we would like to tell the Danish story 2.0. We told the Danish story last time in St. John's, so we would like to do that again. That's us from the Danish Fishermen Occupational Health Service and the Danish Fishermen Association and 3F Worker Union
okay.
together. So
So I think we're a little over time, so I'm going to let everybody else go. But Fleming, if you want to stay on this call for a few minutes, I'd be happy to talk you through.
no problem. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Julie.
Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.